Welcome back to CrowdSec Mastery, Lesson 8, where we trade the kernel hammer for a surgical scalpel. Last lesson, inevitables dropped packets at L3, fast, simple, brutal. But dropping isn't always what you want. Sometimes you want to challenge a suspicious bot with a Captcha, serve a branded 403 to a confirmed attacker, or redirect to a maintenance page. That requires an application layer bouncer, one that actually reads the HTTP request. By the end, you'll have Nginx and Traefik enforcing at L7, and the instinct to know which tool fits the job. So here's the trade-off, side by side. The firewall is your kernel hammer, fastest possible, every port, every protocol, but it's all or nothing. A banned IP just hits a wall. The L7 bouncer costs you some CPU and only speaks HTTP, but it can challenge with a Captcha, serve a branded block page, or apply rules per route. And here's the key. These don't conflict. Most production setups run both. Firewall for known bad block lists, L7 for the nuanced stuff like WP login and scrapers. Now, which L7 bouncer do you actually deploy? 4 real choices. Nginx if you're running Nginx, it's a Lua module, blocks per request, supports Captcha, and live mode. Traefik if you're in Docker or Kubernetes. First-class plugin, no external daemon, auto-discovers containers. HAProxy for high-traffic load balancers, using the SPOE filter for microsecond latency. And Cloudflare when you want blocks pushed to the edge, before traffic ever touches your infrastructure. Pick by your stack, not by hype. Let's start with Nginx, since it's probably the most common stack. 3 steps. Apt install pulls in the Lua module, auto-registers the bouncer with your LAPI, and drops a config snippet into conf.d. No manual nginx.conf edits. Reload nginx, and you're intercepting. To verify, ban a test IP with csxcli, curl with that IP spoofed in x forwarded 4, and you should get a 403 with the xCrowdSec bouncer header. If you see that, you're done. Now that you're intercepting traffic, the next decision is what to actually do with it. One config field, mode, drives everything. Block is the hammer. Instant 403, no content, perfect for SSH, brute force, or obvious bad actors. Captcha is the middle ground. HCaptcha or reCaptcha gates the request, solve it, and you get a cookie through. Ideal for WP login or scrapers, where you might have false positives. Custom redirect sends them to a URL you control so you can serve a branded maintenance page instead of a naked 403. And the kicker? Profiles.yaml lets you set mode per scenario, so SHBF blocks while HTTPBF captchas. 1 bouncer, 3 personalities. Traefik plays by different rules. Instead of a sidecar daemon, the bouncer is a Yaegi plugin loaded straight into the Traefik process. No Lua, no extra container, fewer moving parts. You declare it once in the static config, wire it as middleware in the dynamic config, then attach it to your router. In Docker or Kubernetes, you can do the whole thing with labels. Stream mode pulls the decision list periodically. Live hits LAPI per request. Pick stream unless you really need real time. Now, blocking is only half the job. What the user sees matters too. A bare forbidden is fine for SSH brute force, but on a public site it just looks broken. The Nginx bouncer ships 2 templates you edit in place. Ban template.html and Captcha template.html. Drop in your logo, a support email, brand colors. Placeholders like scenario ID and remediation type get swapped at request time, so users can quote a code when they email you, and you instantly know which scenario fired. Templates handle the look. Captcha handles the gray zone. This is your middle ground. Not a block, but a challenge. False positives stay reachable. Bots burn CPU on puzzles. The lifecycle is 4 states. Triggered when LAPI hands down a Captcha decision, challenged on the next request when the widget loads, solved when the user posts a valid token back to the bouncer, and passed once the CrowdSec Captcha cookie rides along for the rest of ban time. Pick your provider. HCaptcha by default, reCaptcha or turnstile if you prefer, drop in your site and secret keys, and you're live. Now, if you're sitting behind Cloudflare, you can push the block even further out, all the way to their edge. The Cloudflare Worker Bouncer syncs your LAPI decisions into a worker's KV store, and every one of Cloudflare's 300-plus edge locations checks that KV before forwarding a request. Attack traffic gets dropped thousands of miles from your origin. No bandwidth burned, no Nginx worker spawned, no app code executed. And for low-volume sites, the worker's KV free tier covers it. All right, time for the gotchas. 5 ways L7 bouncers will bite you in production. Number 1 is the classic. You forget to trust X forwarded for, and suddenly every ban lands on your load balancer's IP while real attackers stroll right through. 2, Captcha cookies fail when the domain doesn't match exactly. Mind that leading dot for subdomains. 3, your custom 403 page renders naked because the bouncer only serves HTML, so inline your CSS or pull it from a CDN. 4, latency spikes mean someone's running live mode instead of stream. Fix that immediately. And 5, stacking an L7 bouncer on top of a firewall bouncer gives you double enforcement and very confused users. Pick one per server or set the firewall to log only. So let's pull it all together. 6 skills you now own. You can articulate the L3-IL4 versus L7 trade-off. You know the 4 main bouncers and which fits your stack. You understand Nginx's 3 response modes. You've seen why Traefik runs as a plugin instead of a daemon. You can brand your block and Captcha pages, and you know how Cloudflare workers push enforcement all the way to the edge. Kernel hammer, L7 scalpel, edge shield, all 3 layers wired. Next lesson, we close Stage 03 with the hub, community scenarios and block lists. 1 command away. Lesson 8 is in the bag. L7 is wired, Captcha is live, your pages are branded, and you know exactly when to reach for the scalpel instead of the hammer. Next up, Lesson 9, the hub. That's where you stop writing scenarios from scratch and start pulling community block lists with 5 million plus IPs in a single command. Time to join the crowd. See you in Lesson 9.